So what's going on with the Peru coup recently? Let's talk about that. Yesterday, a bunch of ex-military, fairly powerful ex-military, delivered a letter to the Ministry of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Peru, telling them that, like, they need to reject the election results. There was totally a fraud and all of that sort of thing, right? Which, it's obviously bullshit. If you haven't been following the elections there, I'll give you a bit of a rundown. So Pedro Castillo, who is like sort of leftist, at least economically, candidate, beat Keiko Fujimori, who is a fascist candidate, who is literally the daughter of a right-wing military dictator who murdered about 10,000 people and sterilized 300,000 indigenous women, just for the beginning of his crimes, okay? And her ideology is basically, I'm going to be like him. So obviously bad news, right? So she thankfully narrowly lost this election to Pedro Castillo. And since then, she's been doing like a sort of Trump thing. Stop the steal, stop the steal, stop the steal. There's been a fraud, blah, blah, blah. No one's buying it. All the international observers, including right-wing ones like the Organization of American States, said that there was nothing wrong. The J&E, which is like the electoral court that investigates claims of fraud and stuff, have investigated like 1,000 of her requests. She submitted a bunch of requests. Like, let me bring it up. Some of the signatures, so that you can see how bullshit her claims of fraud are, right? She's claiming that there was a massive systemic fraud, okay? Because people who signed off on the electoral tally sheets at the voting stations, apparently there was identity theft, right? Like, these signatures don't match. She's claiming that these signatures are not the same, okay? So there must have been a fraud. Therefore, this tally sheet, which, of course, by coincidence favors her opponent, must be annulled by the electoral authority. And what's the difference? Well, apparently this time the guy signed his signature very slightly differently. Okay, that's it. That's her claim. If you don't sign your signature exactly the same every single time, it's fraud and the vote should be annulled. Let me just show you more examples before I continue. Next one. Like, it literally looks exactly the fucking same. It's practically exactly the same. It's the same sort of shit that Trump did. Obviously bullshit, but it's far more dangerous than what Trump did, because she clearly has backing from some fairly influential military people. This signature and this one are apparently not the same. They look literally exactly the fucking same. Look at them. Practically identical. For one, my signature is like I draw a circle because I never draw with my hands. My handwriting is like a fucking baby, right? So my signature is like, every time I sign it, it's completely different. The thing with a signature is it doesn't matter if the signature is the same or not. What matters is, did the person who claims to be signing it really sign it or not? If you want to prove that these signatures are fraudulent, you can't prove that just by looking at the signatures. You need to actually go to the person and ask, did you sign this? That's how you would prove it to be a forgery, okay? But also, many of these people have been tracked down and they've been asked, did you sign this? And they've said yes. So obviously it's bullshit. Just like the last one. This is an incredibly intricate signature, right? And it seems almost exactly the same. According to Keiko Fujimori's team, this should be annulled for fraud, though. Interesting stuff, right? So all of these have obviously been thrown out because they're obviously a fucking joke. And she's been using the fact that the Electoral Court has been throwing all of these out itself as proof of the fraud. Apparently, because the Electoral Court does not buy her supposed proof of the fraud, that in of itself is proof of the fraud. Very interesting stuff. And so because of that, a bunch of retired military signed off on a massive letter with 1,000 signatures saying that due to the overwhelming evidence of a fraud in the elections, if Pedro Castillo is sworn in as president, we have a duty to disobey, and we have a constitutional right to do a coup, basically. Fairly credible threats of a military coup. I must say, I think that if this were to happen, it wouldn't have sufficient support, because even centrist liberals seem to think that this is bullshit, okay? Even centrist liberals are like, oh fuck, dear God, come on, fuck off, man. So I don't think that, if there was a coup, it would probably be a small faction of the armed forces rather than anything real with any popular support. But still, this is far more serious than anything that happened in the US with Trump. Infinitely more. Yet it's not really getting anywhere near the attention. What really fucking annoys me, and this might just be because I'm extremely online, is that when you look at the so-called big streamers, right? All of them are busy talking about like the latest Jimmy Dore, like oopsie, the latest Jimmy Dore bullshit. Who fucking cares, man? Like, oh, like yeah, it's not exactly the best organized coup attempt ever in Peru, right? But it is a coup attempt. It's by a literal fascist. It's significantly more realistic and more dangerous than what Trump was doing, and most of them have not even fucking mentioned it. So yeah, that kind of annoys me. And just a lack of coverage in English of this in general. Let's see, for example, has the BBC covered this? I don't think they have. No, there's nothing. No, there's fucking nothing. They don't seem to have covered it at all. Like, even the mainstream media hasn't picked up on this story from what I can see. There's nothing here. Like, this should be a fucking leading story on the world news page. Even on the Latin America page, all you get is like just talking about, like, this is not about the coup. This is about before the coup. I've already read this story and it's bullshit. Like, isn't it fucking, like, the lack of coverage of a credible military coup attempt? I mean, it's not that credible. I will admit, I don't think it's going to happen, but it is far more credible than anything that Trump did, which was covered ad nauseum by all of those politics streamers, all of these media outlets. Apparently, it's not important enough. What a bunch of fucking jokes these people are, man. These media outlets, all of them. This is why, like, I want to make, like, sort of like a Michael Brooks show sort of thing. Not anytime soon, but I'd like to do it if I somehow come across the money for it. You hear me, CIA? You hear me, Xi Jinping? Send me an email. I'm interested. Like, you know, just hire like 4 or 5 people to like cover this stuff live. Not so much live, but in a timely manner for like an Angloid audience. But obviously this is far off in the future. So don't worry. You can simp for me on Patreon safely. I will keep making real videos. I'm working on a video about Alberto Fujimori so you guys can know what Peru has avoided in voting for Castillo. I need to educate the Angloids on other countries because you guys are just do not understand things. Not only do you not understand things, you don't even seem to understand that they're even happening. I want to check, has any media outlet talked about this military this sort of military threat? Yeah, so here is the tweet that revealed this first. Like, you know, this is a letter, you know, alleging fraud, bullshit fraud, blah blah blah. And then citing the Constitution as an excuse to do a coup. There's nothing, man. Maybe military letter. No. There's literally fucking nothing. There's literally nothing. There's no reporting on this at all in English. Like, I'm literally telling you right now, if I had like a Michael Brooks show sort of thing, I would have fucking run into the fucking studio, no matter what fucking hour it is, and recorded the video on this and uploaded it literally the second that I saw that tweet. And just going off like what we're seeing in the mainstream media right now, I would have been the first to talk about it out of literally anyone in English by literally days and days. That's why I wanted to do that. That's why I think it's important. And it would be fucking easy, okay? It's the videos that I make are fairly, like, take a long time to make. So I get less endorphins for releasing videos constantly. Whereas if you make, like, you know, a video every day, you get lots of video release endorphins from the views. So yeah, very sort of worrying stuff in Peru. But as I said, my current belief is that any sort of coup attempt there would lack the support from the centrists, which it would desperately need, and it would also lack any international support. So if there was a coup, I mean, even fucking Biden would come out against it, not because he's like morally opposed to it, but because it just wouldn't look good. Claiming systemic fucking fraud on the part of an international communist conspiracy when the people who apparently did this fraud have literally zero institutional power, obviously is just utterly absurd. That's the only real reason why this is not going to get the support from people who would otherwise be happy for Castillo not to take power. Nonetheless, the fact that it's getting zero fucking coverage when you compare it to like the Trump thing, for example, is really demoralizing, but it's also something that I feel like, you know, if I somehow got the capital to put a team together where I actually live, I would be able to kind of fill that gap in English.